All right, so this is the demo drum loop that I want to show you guys just so we can kind of go over those foundational points, like things such as like volume, sound selection, panning, and sound placement. I've color coded everything just to make it really nice and easy for us. But as you can see, I have 2 drum hits. So, some of the hits are layered, but then also I have, I'm using this kick also in between kind of as like a filler. My snare hit, as you can see here, I've layered 4 hits on this one, only 2 here. But as you continue to go down, well, I've also layered a snare hit with a hi-hat. Down here, there's these percussion sounds. Those are layered on top of the last clap as well, like the last snare hit. So let's just listen to the beat, and then we're going to further dissect this drum loop, okay? Okay, so a pretty catchy beat for just one instrument and, a pretty full drum loop, okay? So, there's a decent amount going on here. So something to keep in mind here is this is just a 4-beat loop or just like a 1-bar loop. So if you remember, I was saying you want to stay away from these kind of loops. It all depends on, is it catchy? If it's catchy, it's cool. But if it's not catchy, that's where you want to try to avoid those 4-beat loops. And actually, this isn't a 4-beat loop because as you can see here, I have the 4-beat loop and then I have the end loop bring in. So if you look right here, I have extra sounds which are used to kind of bring back in this loop. Okay, so just imagine if as if it was like this, because that's all it is. So as we're playing, now it comes into so right now we're in the 4-beat loop, as you can see up here. So just kind of look in this area as I turn to the next pattern, which is the blue one here. So look here. Now I've added in some sounds. So as this loop goes, all these sounds are still the same all around up until here. And then right around here in this area, this is where these sounds start to play, and it kind of brings the loop back in to kind of keep that catchiness going on. Because if the loop is just the same, it can get annoying. Okay, so I'm going to play the individual sounds. I'll show you how I have placed them. Also, further down, I have done some panning and I've adjusted velocity for certain sounds to kind of give them more humanness and more catchiness into the beat. Okay, so right here, just have a kick drum, another kick drum, a snare, and then this snare is actually very quiet. It's also kind of filtered, so it doesn't have much high end. Another snare hit, clap, and this clap is just being added onto the very first drum hit. So if we just listen to just the drum loop and this one hit clap, so without the clap, so it just kind of adds that little extra tail, that kind of reverb to it. Okay, so that is just the benefits of layering and stuff like that. It kind of gives you different sound. So for example, these kicks are layered and so are these kicks. But if we come down here, it's like, well, this has that initial kind of layer over top of the first hit, and it kind of lets the listener know, it's like, well, that's the beginning of the loop. Okay, so to continue on with the sounds, I really like to kind of layer hi-hats and just use different hi-hats in there. It just gives your drum loop just a kind of a different vibe, different feeling, And as you can see here, if you look at like the panning and stuff like that, a little bit to the left and stuff like that. Many times I will actually do the panning and stuff inside the mixer, but depending on the workflow, sometimes I will just pan it in here, and then that's my drum loop, and then I'll just mix it in the mixer with volume and compression and stuff like that. It all depends on the workflow and how I've made the beat. I usually tend to avoid using these knobs for mixing, but sometimes it is just a nice little quick fix, just kind of like, oh, well, I want this snare just to be a little bit lower down in volume, and that's what I'll do. Okay, so let's just listen to the 4-beat loop, which is the green one, And then I'm going to listen to the end loop bring in, which has these notes added in, okay? As you can see. So this note is actually added, it's kind of pushed over a little bit more, and it's adding these in. And then the 4-beat loop is, you know, takes it away. So let's just listen to the drum loop. Okay, and the other loop. Okay, so these sounds right here, it just kind of adds that little bring in to kind of give change up and, you know, give the listener a little bit something different to listen to, and then it just brings that loop back in. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna listen to just like the one kick drum and then like the one snare, okay? And then I'm gonna add in the next kick drum just so that you hear the fullness of layering, and then also using another drum sample to kind of fill in, to kind of give like that rocky kind of feeling, okay? So there, right now we just have the kick drum and we just have our first basic snare. That's probably what I started the drum loop off of, and then I started to add in the other sounds to kind of create fullness. Another thing you'll notice once we add in the more snares is this hit sounds more dry. This hit is a lot more wet sounding. Okay, so I'm just gonna go to the 4-beat loop here. So we just got the first kick drum and the first snare. Add in the next kick drum. Take out the second kick. Okay, so as you can hear, it just kind of fills in a little bit more. It gives the listener a little bit more to listen to. This kick drum has that little gritty sound. So I'm gonna add in more snares here now. So this snare, it might not add much, you know, it's just kind of in the background, but we'll listen. Take it away. Okay, so I do hear a little bit of a different sound when I add that in. Let's check out the piano roll, and let's just see if I have nudged these sounds over a little bit or not. So as you can see, I have, okay? So what I'll do there is I'll hold down Shift and my scroll wheel. So I'm holding down Shift right now on my scroll wheel, and as you can see, you can nudge the note over a little bit. And when you do that, it gives the sound a different flavor of hit. So let's just make sure that it's on right now. So yes, it's on. Go back to the piano roll here. So what I'm gonna do is let's just nudge this over like this. It's gonna sound not good, but that's what I want you guys to hear. Okay, so it's off. So what if we put it up before? And this is too much. Like I'm talking like we'd just be doing a little nudge, but just for you guys to hear. Okay, so it's way off. But what you can do is you can get away with sometimes the sound being even this far out. Okay, so no. So this is where it should be, okay? But what I found was the sound, it was kind of maybe getting lost a little bit. You know, I wasn't hearing much of it, so I was like, well, do you know what? I'm just gonna nudge it over a little bit, and that sound will now become more audible because it's not being hit at the same time as the other hits. It's being hit just a little bit later, so it opens up space for that snare hit to kind of hit. And then it also gives the snare hit a looser feel too. It's just not so drum sequencer like. It's hitting a little off time, but you don't really notice it because of all the other sounds which maybe are on time. It's just kind of creating a fuller layered sound. So we'll check it out. Okay, so I can hear it. It's subtle. This might be a bit too much. Now in the slideshow, I had written that you use Alt and the scroll wheel. Sorry, it is Shift. You hold on Shift and the scroll wheel, and that is going to nudge the note for you. If you hold on Alt and the scroll wheel, as you can see, that is adjusting the volume. Now, another thing I just heard there, so if we right click and go pan, so as you can see, I have panned this snare far left, and let's check out this one. So I've panned this one far right. So if we listen to this snare hit, so let's just, gonna make this a little smaller. Let's just mute this snare hit, okay? So we know we have our drum, snare, and this is where we're at right now in our loop. So as you can see, right now, that is playing dead center because I have the actual snare hit dead center. It's just this individual note that I have panned left. So if we listen to it, you're going to hear it's on the far left, I think. So I hover my mouse down here. So if you look up here in the top left, it'll let you know what percentage you're at, you know, so you can go like whatever, 17% or the full thing. Same thing over here, be right. So let's just listen to the snare hit just, you know, just by itself. Okay, so I guess that's just what I wanted to do. Now, as you can see on the on my ghost notes, and if you don't have ghost notes, they're very handy. You're gonna go this arrow, you're gonna go helpers, and then I think it's ghost channels. Yeah, so helpers, ghost channels. So what that does is all the other notes inside the same pattern, you are going to see where they hit, and that allows you to kind of be a little bit more creative because, you know, what I did here was see this snare hit is hitting on the left and then the second hit is hitting on the right. Now, if we go to the next snare hit, so I'll just go here and go snare, as you can see, so this one's hitting on the right and then it's hitting on the left. So if we go back, you know, it's switching them up in between. I guess that's just what I wanted to do, just to kind of give creativity. So what this does is it gives the snare hit a wider sound. Okay, so as you can see here, it's actually showing that the snare hit is hitting here. But if we, so this is snare 22, okay, and it's showing that it's actually not hitting like you know, on the red on the 2, because it'd be like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. Okay, we're going to be getting into where your safe spots are on your drum loop. But I just want to show you guys just this drum loop, just to give you guys a rundown, and then we'll get into that. So right now it's showing that this hit is actually here, but it's not. It should be here. I've just nudged it over, and that's the reason why it's like that. So if we maximize this, we zoom in, and this is a handy trick. You hold down Control and the right click, and it allows you to zoom in as much as you can. So as you can see, I've just kind of nudged it over. So if we do something like this, it moved it, right? So I've just moved it back a little bit. So if we listen to this snare hit just by itself, so for whatever reason, I guess I wanted the volume down and this volume up. So we'll listen just to both these snares. Okay, so it kind of gives that wider sound. Now if I add in the main snare, this is the main snare. Remove them. Okay, so it just kind of makes it a little wider sounding. So if I add the drums in and we listen to this. Okay, so there's two things I'm hearing. One, this sounds super repetitive with just these two kicks and this snare, because nothing's changing with that snare. It's now in like robot step sequencer mode. It's not going to change. Whereas this sound, if you remember, let's go to 27. So both of these are the same velocity, as we can see. So we're on velocity, they're on the same velocity, but again, the pan is far left and then far right. But now we go into 22, and again, so now it's far right and far left. So they're just opposite to kind of create a wide sound. But because this snare hit is kind of quieter, once it comes to this snare hit, which is louder, it gives you a more bouncy, rocky kind of feel. Okay, so let's just listen to that again. So you can kind of hear, so around here, it's like, okay, that's one snare hit. And then once it hits this one, it does sound a little bit, you know, louder, because it is louder. And it gives you that feeling of it's a lot more catchy. So we'll listen. Okay, so those are just really little things, but it's a lot of those little things which add up to a really nice drum loop. Okay, so our next one is a clap, and it's a really, like, you know, kind of big hit with like a long tail kind of sound. So if we listen to the kick drum now, this snare hit is a lot more dry. This one has a lot more wetness, a lot more tail, and this clap has a lot to do with that. Okay, so if we listen. So what this is doing is it's giving change up, it's giving more variety for the listener. It's not just the same kick, clap, for example. That can sound very, very boring. Whereas again, we listen to this again, especially this clap adds a lot. You know, and just because I've nudged these notes a little bit, I can hear that it's either a little quick or it is a little bit late sounding, but it's still in sync. It still sounds good. So now we add this clap on, like I was showing you before. You know, it's being layered. So this first kick, you hear the difference. It's like, oh, well, that is the beginning of the loop. That is the one. Okay, so all that is just layering to create a more interesting sound. Now here, what I've done is I like to use more than one hi-hat. That's just my approach. I feel what it does is it gives you different sounds for those quick hits in between. I'll let you guys listen just to all the hats, and then I'm going to take them out and we can kind of hear what I've done with them. So we'll listen. Okay, so let's just listen to the hi-hats here. Okay, so we'll check it out. Let's go to the piano roll and let's just see what I've done. So right now I'm in velocity. And as you can see on this one, I've just kind of turned down the velocity a little bit. Let's check out the velocity for the next one. So again, I've brought down the velocity on that same hit a little bit. But as you can see, what I've done, so I'm going to make this bigger. So as you can see, what I've done is I've actually nudged some of these hi-hats over. So instead of this hi-hat actually hitting like in between the beat, you know, I've kind of nudged it over a little bit just to kind of give my hi-hats a little bit of a different flavor. It's just not so robotic. It's a little offbeat. You know, this one's actually over quite a lot and it's down in volume. And then this one too, I've moved it over. So if we listen to it, I'm going to like watch. If you hit Control and Q, it quantizes it all. So if we listen just to the closed hat, and you know, that sounds fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But this is it now with, you know, when I nudged it. And again, all I was doing is I was just holding on shift, and you can move it over or move it back kind of thing. Okay. Let's go now to this one. So as you can see, the volume, I moved it down a little bit. So these hats are actually all hitting in perfect time. Like, so it's like they've been quantized or whatever, you know, panning. So as you can see, this one is a bit to the left. This one is a bit to the right. So that is the second hi-hat. Okay. And then there's this one too. So we'll go to the next one. So there's no panning being involved in this one, but the velocity, so that one is just straight the way it is. There's no nudging, it doesn't look like, or anything like that. So we'll go to the next one. So this one is just in between, and is it panned or anything? No, it isn't. And then that's that. So if we listen to all this, take out the hi-hats. Okay, so just onto the percussion sounds here. Probably didn't do anything special with that, so we're going to check it out. We're going to go panning, nothing, velocity, nothing in there either. So that's just like the initial straight hit, just I guess to help kind of give the kick maybe some more body or something. This is kind of shaker sound. Probably didn't do anything special. And then also, if we go to the next loop, I can also, in here, I can change around sounds by, like, you know, because now it's a different pattern. You can affect it differently. But we'll go back to the first pattern here. So piano roll, panning, nothing going on. This one. So as you can see here, you know, I nudge the note, so it's not hitting, you know, in sync. It's a little off. It's a little off beat, but you probably don't hear it, and it just adds to a looser feel. So we'll go velocity, you know, pan, nothing. So it's just, I just nudged the note on that one. This one, it's just hitting where it is. Okay, so we're gonna listen to it with these. We'll listen to this. So again, this is just nudged. So if I come here, you look at this note, so it should be hitting here, but it's just because I nudged it over, that's where it is. So we'll go back. And then is there any panning going on? No, nothing. Okay, so we'll listen to it with the percussion. So that's that sound that you're hearing. Okay, so we'll just listen to the percussion just by itself there. Okay, so you know, as you can hear there, it kind of sounds like it's not in sync. It's like the shaker. It's like the shaker is late or is hitting too soon or something like that, which it is. You know, the shaker's kind of off. But if we listen to it with like the kicks and claps and stuff like that, you know, it kind of flows still. And then down here, we just kind of have some more sounds. And, you know, surprisingly, these sounds, they stand out really good, which is the reason why, you know, I've turned down their hits in volume, because like if I put this up and this one up, like it's just too much. It doesn't sound too bad, but it is just a little overpowering. You know, I just wanted this in the background. They kind of sound cool. And, you know, you can still hear them in the beat. Okay, so now on to the end loop bring in. That's what I mean by BI bring in. So as you can see, nothing is really changing too much with them. It's just right here, and then I've added in notes here, okay? So if you just keep watching here, I haven't changed anything except just right there, okay? And so what I'm doing there is I am trying to add notes in to bring the loop back in. And the reason why I've created two separate patterns is because if I originally made the loop in here, if I wanted to make it 8 beats now, so in other words, a 2-bar loop, because a bar would be the green. So that is 1 bar. So 1 to 2. So that's 1 bar. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay. So there's 4 beats in 1 bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's your 8 beats. That's your 2 bars. So what I would have had to have done is I would have expanded this. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll bring this back one. Okay, so what I would have had to have done is just, you know, copy everything that I've done here. Just would have had to click it back in, and I was like, that's too tedious of a job. Like, you know, there's got to be a quicker way, and there is. So what you do is you go to the pattern that you're working on that you want the loop to repeat, but you just want the end notes to change. So you go to your pattern, whether it be like the piano, the end loop, or the 4-beat loop. But in our case, we want the 4-beat loop because we will be creating the end loop, which I've already created, but we're going to be creating, let's say, this loop. So you go to that pattern, you go up here to patterns, and you just go clone. And when you clone it, what happens is you see now 2. So as you can see here, we have a 4-beat loop. We have a 4-beat loop number 2. That's the one we just cloned. Now, if I add in the number 2, as you can see, it's the same thing. It's cloned. So if I would just, let's say, do something like this, okay, just to kind of show you what I'm doing. Now, as you can see, when I'm on number 2, we have this added in, but we go back to the original loop. That loop hasn't changed. We've just cloned it. So it's now like a new pattern, and we are adding in what we want to add in. For example, those end notes to bring back the loop in. And then you can just hit F2. And as you can see here, you know, you can relabel it and stuff like that. All I would do there is I just went end loop BI, and then I was like, you know, click here, give it a color, or you hit F2 again and you can give it another color. Okay, so let's just kind of give it like a red or something like that. Number 2, let's say. And then you can right click here and you go like auto name, and that's how I kind of got like the colors and stuff like that. So I'm just going to go up here to pattern, and I'm going to delete this one. Okay. And now all we are left with is the 4-beat loop, the end loop bring in like I have there, and then I have the piano. I use my number pad. So on your computer keyboard, your number pad, you have the minus and the plus, okay? So the minus, as you can see, it puts me up a pattern. The plus puts me down a pattern. It's just very, very nice for workflow. So I'm gonna go to 4-beat loop. So when I hit play, you guys can watch down here, and you guys are gonna see, the steps so you can follow it. Okay, you guys could follow that to kind of see where we're at. So right now I'm on the 4-beat loop. We're going to let this play, and then I want you guys to focus right here. Then we're going to further dissect this, okay? Okay, so let's just listen to this drum loop by itself. Okay, so what I've done, let's check out the piano roll here. Zoom in here. So I've adjusted some velocity on this hit. Nothing here. Let's see, to do any panning. Yeah, I did do some panning. So I did far left, or pretty much like 80%, something like that. And again, if you look up here, you guys can see, and then like 62% kind of thing. Go to the next percussion sound. No panning, but did I do velocity? No, that's just a straight hit. Same here, straight hit. So as you can see, this sound and this sound, it looks like there's nothing really special going on with them. They're just straight hits. Is there any panning going on with this one? Nope. So now this one, as you can see here, what I've done is I've nudged it over a bit to the left there. We go velocity. So this sound right here, I boosted up in velocity a little bit. This one I actually boosted down a little bit. I just kind of tweaked it to make it suit what I wanted there without it, being too overpowering, but I still wanted, to add into the loop to give it change up. So it's just not the same loop going over and over and over. It is the same loop, but we just changed up some notes and added some notes in just to kind of give it a little bit of, change up. Okay, so what's going on here, if I right click and go piano roll, this hit is hitting exactly where it is. So again, I'm going to go on my number pad and hit the minus. It allows me to change, the pattern, as you can see up here, or you can just simply click here and go that. So this note is pretty much hitting on the same spot. Again, it just looks like it's changing, but all it is it's just nudged over just a little bit. So on the 4-beat loop, it's nudged, and for whatever reason on the end loop, it isn't. So I must have adjusted that, or maybe it was nudged, and then I hit Control Q and I quantized it by accident or something like that. But that is the difference. Also, something to mention is my tempo. It is 92 beats per minute. I must have just kind of slowed it down just to kind of give me more of an urban kind of hip hop kind of drum loop feel. So what I'm gonna do is I'll let you guys listen to this drum loop again. We'll listen to like the full song, play around with the tempo just a little bit, and then we're gonna go into actually creating our own drum loop, just so you guys can really see how how to apply these kind of effects, and how to build the drum loop, the workflow, and all that kind of stuff. Also, another thing to mention is, I actually used no swing in here. I will adjust this up quite high, and you guys will hear how it affects the drum loop. So as I increase the swing, really focus on this kick drum. You're gonna hear that it's very, very loose sounding, okay? Like it's almost like it's playing late, but it's still in time, okay? So we're gonna listen to it with no swing and really focus on this kick drum. Okay, so this kick drum and this kick drum, you really hear that swing really spicing up the drum loop, really loosening it up. If you're really struggling with your drum loop, or you just kind of feel it's just too static, just add some swing in there and you guys will really hear the difference that it's making in your track. So before we move into making our own drum loop, let's just check out the drum loop with the piano again, adjust some tempo, and then we'll get into making our own drum loop, all right? Another quick thing I'd like to mention about swing that has been added into FL Studio 12 is now you have the ability to adjust how much swing each sound has. So it kind of has like a mix knob. So for example, if we have this, where it is, you can come here into, you just click on the actual individual sound. You're gonna click up here on the wrench. You come down here to time, and as you can see, swing. You can just adjust that and it'll adjust how much swing. So for example, if you like all the other sounds on how they are, kind of moving with how much swing you have adjusted in, you can dial this back if you want only a certain sound to not be adjusted by swing, which is an amazing feature that FL Studio has added in. But let's get into making our own drum loop, all right?